Did the first Devo, so let me get it pulled up.
All right, well, we're recording, so
Oh, we're
whenever you're
recording?
ready.
I was pulling it up. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't have any
But, I
notes.
mean,
I'm not going to lie.
we can talk about your week. Because, I mean, it's been 2 weeks since we actually.
Bro, I'm bald. Look at that. I'm growing so bald. See, this is what I'm talking about. It's coming close.
Oh,
It's getting
Lord.
close to just shaving it all. Sorry, Mom. The week was good. Easter was good. Got to see cousins and cousins' families and all that stuff, aunts and uncles, which is always fun.
Yeah.
We did do it at Emily's house, my cousin Emily's house, and I had only been there once. I can't remember what I was there for, but I'd been there once. And it's a little smaller than my aunt and uncle's.
Yeah.
And so all the kids and everybody running around, it was a little more
Little
cramped,
packed.
but half the time the kids were outside anyway,
There
so
you
it was
go.
fun.
So, all right. Well, I ended up going out to my parents' house on Saturday. We did a little Easter egg hunt with Bellamy, and she wanted to do it again. She wanted to just go find him again. And so we told her, like, there's not going to be anything in them this time, you know. And so she started opening them, and she opened one and was like, no, I'm done. So we stuck them all out there for
This isn't
nothing.
as fun as the first time.
It's not. And they were all empty. So she was just like, no, I'm good. So, but yeah, it was a good time. We went out there on Saturday, and then Sunday we went and had lunch with her parents. So it worked out. All right, so I got the Devo pulled up. So I've been reading Proverbs, you know, still going through that one, you know, and just trying to read like a chapter every day, night, whatever. And so again, I'm in the area still where it's like just like each verse is just kind of like snippets of knowledge, like, hey, you know, like you do this, this can happen, you know, like, so it's not like there's an overall, you know, kind of review of the chapter, like, you know, how that kind of separates them out. So there's not really that. So we have Proverbs 20, verse 7, and it says, the one who lives with integrity is righteous. His children who come after him will be happy. And, like, that one kind of stuck out to me because, like, I'm the closest I've ever been to being a father, you know?
Yeah.
Not like we're pregnant, nothing like that, you know?
Surprise!
But, you know, we've talked about it.
No, but it's on the horizon.
It's on the horizon within, I'd say, the next year to 2 years. You know, like, that's our goal. We talked about that from, you know, the beginning. I told her, I was like, I really want 2 years of marriage, me and you. Like, and of course, we'd always love to go do more stuff, like go travel more, go to different places. But, you know, life doesn't allow that sometimes. So, like, but even still, just 2 years to kind of figure things out for ourselves too. And so, but
You're
like,
gonna kick the
sorry,
desk
I know I
every
just
single
kicked
time.
it. We've changed up the
It's gonna
setup,
be
if you can
so
tell.
funny.
Sorry, my leg itched. But so, like, you know, that verse kind of stuck out to me, and it's just like, because it's like, you know, you all, like, it was always preached to us, like, oh, you need to act this way because if not, it'll show on your mom and dad. You know, I remember hearing that all the time, and then I honestly realized, like, well, that doesn't really matter at all, to be honest. As an adult now, I'm like, doesn't really matter, don't care. But, like, even still, like, I thought about that, and I'm like, man, like, okay, that can be true in so many different ways, you know. And so it's like, I really need to, like, I'm not saying like, oh, I've been slacking, I need to step it up, but like, I should. I really have been. It's easy, and so I'm like, I really need to step it up because, like, I want to set the example for my kids that, you know, others and my parents set for me. You know, like, there are things that I don't want to hopefully have happen that have happened to me, and with how I was parented growing up and stuff. Of course, I think everybody has those. But specifically, like, the fact of, like, truly living with, you know, the integrity and living a life that is, you know, holy and pleasing to God. So it's like, it just kind of stuck out to me this week. So yeah,
That actually kind of goes along with the question
Yeah,
I kind of thought of that I
Oh.
didn't tell you about.
yeah,
Because I'm bad at podcasting, and so I don't prepare like I should for topics.
yeah.
But I thought of this question, and I'll kind of give you the example after you explain yours of why I thought about it, I guess. Do you, as many different things, like as a husband, just as a believer, as a guy, do you find it hard to, I want to be loose with this word, as feel proud? Because obviously, not in the sense of pride, as in like, oh, I'm, you know, the big ego kind of prideful.
Yeah.
Because obviously that's a sin. That's not, that's never your goal, is to be a proud person.
Yeah.
But if you look at it in the aspect of like take guilt. Like guilt can be a good thing
Yeah.
in small bursts.
Yeah.
Because obviously guilt allows us to feel that that's part of the spirits convicting us.
Yeah.
And so it allows us to understand, oh, we're screwing up, or we're not doing what we should be doing.
We're missing the mark
So,
on something.
yes, in that sense, guilt in that moment could be good because it helps correct you. But then obviously you don't want to sit in it. Like you don't want to linger in it, because then that's when it becomes shame, and that's just not good.
Yeah.
Same aspect of like being proud. It can be good in kind of short bursts, because it's kind of like that. What do they call? It's the training, like it's the good behavior training or whatever, or positive reinforcement. That's what it is.
Yes.
It can act as a positive reinforcement in that, like, if you feel good about doing something right, you're like, it spurs you on to continue to do that, basically. And so, like, in that aspect is what we're going for. Do you find it hard to, like, feel proud about something? Like, whether it's something you're doing or something that you did or didn't do. You know, something like that.
And yeah.
And there's so many. There's the husband aspect. There's just the man aspect. There's the believer aspect. All that.
And as a just an overall, I'm gonna say yes, like and I think that's the whole thing with pride, is it's always been a very fine line to walk. You can easily. I heard a quote, and I'm gonna butcher it, and it was from one of either the devotionals I was doing, or maybe I just heard it on the radio. But it was talking about, like, if you think you're nailing down pride, then you're probably being prideful. You know, it's like kind of like that. And then when you think that you've like I said, I'm going to butcher it because I can't remember it. And literally, I wish you had told me this question, because I could have had time to look it up.
Fair enough. Yeah, that was
but pretty
my
much
fault.
like it was like, if you think you're doing this, then you're probably still struggling with it.
Yeah.
But if you think you're not struggling with it, then you might be doing
it's
okay.
It's like, if I say I'm a humble person, no, you're not.
Yeah, like you can't brag about being humble.
No humble person.
The only person that can
humble.
brag about being humble is Jesus.
Yeah,
so he's the only one. But so that was kind of like along the lines. But yeah, like it's very hard to feel proud of something, like, and like I can use something really simple, because like say I make dinner, right? And I mean that's good. It's good dinner. Like I cooked up some steaks, got the baked potatoes, like I threw it down. Like I want to brag about that, but how does that make my wife feel? You know, like maybe I don't think, because whenever I cook, I talk about how great I cook, but maybe I don't give that same kind of compliment to her. So it's very easy to be prideful in that moment, and so it's like, and clearly my wife is not a horrible cook. She's a wonderful cook, and she cooks most of the time anyways. So, but like, it's so easy to like even like give compliments. Like when you're given a compliment, like you can almost sound prideful in a compliment, because they might take that. It just depends on how somebody's going to take something. And I mean, so there's all these different little aspects of it. But
I think guys are hard at compliments anyway.
Yes.
Like girls compliment.
Yeah, compliment their hair, compliment
girls
their face,
compliment each other. And
whatever.
They don't even mean it sometimes. Like they just do it. It's like a default. But like guys, it is hard, because I find it hard to take compliments.
Yeah.
I will, like, I love you if you compliment me and all that, but like I feel so awkward taking a compliment, and I don't know what to do. I'm an awkward person anyway.
Especially if it's one of those ones that you don't get often, like, oh, your hair looks really nice.
Yeah.
Like
the hardest ones were whenever, like, back in high school and like early college, whenever we would do like a special in church, I hated doing them anyway. Yeah. I hated singing in front of church. Like, I just wasn't comfortable with it. But obviously I would do it. Like me and Jordan would do something, or we did a couple as like a band basically together. Getting after the service, getting literally everybody who's around you come up and be like, "Oh, it was so good. You sound so good." I don't know how to take that.
Yeah,
stuff.
and like, and because here's the
so
thing:
awkward.
if you were to be like, "Oh no, that was God's doing," then they'd be like, "Well, you're just being like super humble."
There's no
there's no good way to be like.
There's no win in it. You can't be humble about it, and you can't be like, "Oh yeah, I am good."
Because
like I did
like
great.
one,
Like,
you
no.
either you're like you try to give God the glory for it, and then you get knocked with the you're holier. Excuse me, you're holier than I am. But then if you're like, yeah, we practice really hard on it, and we're glad that it sounded good and we feel like we did a good job. Then they're gonna be like, well,
Yeah,
eh,
I
there's no
absolutely
good way.
absolutely hated those moments
Yeah,
because I just don't know how to take
that's
it.
like some of these old ladies. They'll be like, they'll say like, oh, I like that what you did on the drums this week, or like I like how you played that song, and I'm like, oh, thanks.
Yeah, you just it's just like
What am
thank
I
you,
supposed to
like
say to
thank you.
that? Like,
It's super
and
awkward.
it's not like I'm trying to be rude, clearly, but it's like it's just like one of those things. Like, any way I feel like I answer it, I feel like I answer it like a jerk. Yeah,
Yeah,
because like there's there's other people that play drums, and so it's like, well, you played it better than that person, or I like how you play other compared to that person, but I'm like, oh, I don't really know how to answer this question.
yeah.
But
The reason I asked that initially was because, so I obviously we're not going to get into it, but like as far as like relationships go, the I guess situation that I'm in.
yeah,
Switch legs here. I have to move the mic every single time I adjust. It's fine though. Speaking of, this is a tangent. We're gonna, cause like we're kind of like more leaning like in, so we're gonna have to angle stuff differently the next episode. And I might even move the mic, whatever. I obviously a little bit about the situation I'm in and
yeah,
stuff, and and we're not like in a talking stage or anything like that, but we are talking to each other. Like we're not like just not communicating.
yeah,
But I am doing my best to be what I call above reproach. Obviously, like Paul talks about it to Timothy.
yeah,
And he's talking about it about leading the church, but the same rules apply. Just making sure I'm saying the right thing, doing the right thing, to where I'm basically like, I think I put it in a message the other day of like, I am fighting my selfishness
hmm,
as far as like there are things that I would want to ask you and do want to talk about, but it's just not the right time.
yeah,
And I'm fighting that selfishness to want those answers
yeah,
and saying, I'm gonna lay that aside because I don't want to put her dignity, integrity, or anything like that
yeah.
into
And
consideration.
there's those questions that like you only ask people when you want to get to know them.
Yeah, and so I am daily like fighting that back and forth of like, oh, I really want to ask this or I really want to talk about this, but it
Yeah,
might be too forward, crossing that line, whatever. And so I'm just not, I'm and we talked about, I think, a little bit last week or the week before, when I was talking about going through the Ben Stewart series.
hmm,
This was the first time really ever that I could say that when he asked the question in the singles video, obviously Paul talks about like being single is for the purpose of glorifying God. It's
yeah,
for the devotion to God. It is to have just absolute devotion and want to please God.
hmm,
That's what singleness is for. I'd never been able to answer that before. Like I was always like, yeah, I don't care. I want to be in a relationship.
yeah,
But like I said a couple weeks ago, it was like this is the first time that I feel like I am in that spot of, oh, I am, I can see, and obviously it's like I'm not perfect. I'm not sinless here.
yeah,
But like just the conversation that we have either on the podcast or at work, like there's constant conversations that I'm having of my mental state. The first thing that typically goes to my head is, okay, how can I, if I do this or if I don't do this, how is that going to look to God? Is it going to glorify Him or not? And how can I further that, basically? And so I can say that, for the first time, I am in that position of like, man, I feel like my singleness era, though I
yeah,
don't like it, I hate being single, it's in the good spot.
yeah,
Which allows me to think like, oh, maybe I am ready for a relationship kind of thing. Maybe I am ready for like the big relationship of like end all be all. But
I'll just say nothing can
in
can prepare you for
oh,
that.
absolutely.
Like there is no way to prepare
But
for any of that.
in those moments of like, oh, I feel like I'm in a good spot. I feel like that.
Yeah,
It tends to be like, oh, I feel proud about that. Like I
yeah,
feel happy. Like I feel good about being in those moments.
yeah,
And it's like, it's hard for me to do that because then I'm like, well, maybe like if I'm feeling too good about it, maybe it's not good. like if I'm feeling too good about where I'm at, maybe it's not good.
Yeah. Oh, there's
And so that was like the initial idea of like the question,
yeah,
I guess.
and there's no reason to not kind of like always check yourself.
Yeah.
Like literally, like you can always go and be like talking to God or just kind of evaluating yourself and looking like, okay, oh, that kind of looks like it could be a little prideful. Maybe I should ask God to clarify that. Maybe, and that's how you grow. I mean, that's part of it. Because it's like, and like, I think, like I said, nothing prepares you to get married. I'm sorry. There's like, you can do as much premarital counseling. You can do as much like seeking God and reading His Word, but it's still going to be a completely different change. Now, yes, you can prepare better for it by doing premarital counseling and being devoted to God and seeking Him, and because I mean that gets you things that you don't already have. If you read God's Word, He tells you, He gives you wisdom, because wisdom is God's knowledge. So like you're already learning things that are above anybody's mind on this earth. Now, yes, the same things get revealed to a lot of us, but like again, God can give specific knowledge to people, in certain situations, and that's how I feel about it, because again, I've been reading Proverbs and it talks a lot about that. It's like you're gonna live your life, you're gonna do these things, and then like, but he's like at the end of it, he's like, focus on God, and He's gonna show you what you need to know. And like for us, like I don't know if I really ever told you like mine and Emily, or mine and Emily's story. Like when we first started talking, like we kind of like ended up deciding that we weren't gonna date. We were like, oh, like, hey, and because I told her, like I was struggling with some things, and I was like, I just don't know if I'm really ready for a relationship that I thought I was, and so like we try like not to talk to each other, and it becomes so difficult to not talk to somebody, like it was like I think we went like a whole not even 24 hours like after like because I was like she asked me, she's like, so how do you really feel about this? And I was like, I mean, honestly, I feel like we kind of need to just go our own ways. Like, I don't hate you. I don't dislike you. I have nothing against you. I think, I still like you and everything, but I just, things in my life don't go with this, and they shouldn't. And so it's like, but then I found literally, like I said, not talking to her or not like, trying to text her or anything was the worst experience of my life. And like, I'd never really had that before. Cause I could normally just like be like, oh, if I broke up with somebody, I just wouldn't talk to him again, like for a long time, try to avoid it most likely. And so like it became that. And then, it was like, hey, do you want to go do this? I went on a trip with her to her grandparents' house.
Did you really?
Yes.
Before y'all are dating?
Yeah. Well, like we had like that was the time that we were like, hey, do you want to like
talking?
We were talking, but then we were decided that we weren't gonna really date, and then she's like, and then she's like, hey, so we're going to Arkansas this weekend, to see my grandparents for I don't even remember what it was, and I was like, she's like, do you want to come? And I'm like, sure.
That's a trip, bro.
Yeah, and so it was wild, like, and like then we look back at it and we're like, man, like. But, like, those things all led up to us now being married and learning many things along the way. And it's just like I said, like, I mean, if anybody should have been prepared, it should have been us. I mean, like, we were in church our whole lives. We read our Bibles. We learned. And then, like, we realized how much, like, oh, nothing prepares you fully for this.
Yeah.
You learn so much. And, again, the grace of God has, shown upon us in so many areas. And so it's like, this was nice. We get to learn.
Yeah, I definitely don't think I'll ever be prepared. Because it's the same thing. It's like kids. It's like the same things like ugh, everyone tells kids. You, like, no one will prepare. Nothing can prepare you for that. It's like, that's very true. The biggest decisions in life, typically, you can never be prepared for.
Yeah.
I get that. But, like, the aspect of, like, I just know that I've never been in this position before.
Yeah.
As far as, like this is the best example, and again, I'm not gonna try and like say too much because I mean I don't know how she feels about all this. She's probably not even gonna watch this anyway. There's like Matt, love you Matt. He's like one of the few that watches this. I love that. But there's a way the way that I'm going about things is very different. Than it used to be. It used to be I hate that I have to say this, but it's also good that you can recognize it. Like, I used to be very selfish
Yeah.
when it came to girls. Like, I didn't care. I did, but I wasn't concerned as much about like what their feelings were, where they were, mentally and
Yeah.
spiritually and stuff like that. It was more about like how I felt. It was more about what my feelings were, how I felt about it, um, and so I was very focused on my own self. Um, with this, and again, we're not dating or anything like that, but just since we've known each other, the interactions have been very much okay. Well, I'm focused on how does this make her look? How does this make her feel? How does this, what does she think about it? So like I can already tell like the way that I'm going about it this time around is extremely
Yeah.
different.
And one
And
of
to me, again, back kind of full circle, like I feel proud about that.
yeah.
And obviously, I'm like, oh my god, but but I feel good
Oh
because,
Lord.
and I thought about this the other day. I was like, even if this doesn't go anywhere, because
Yeah.
again, like I have those moments because you know me, I overthink everything,
Yeah, you
and
do.
I get into my head and have anxiety about stuff. But I have a lot of points in the day where I'll be thinking it, and I will very in a very real way. This kind of goes back to like when we talked about the spirit. I will feel a sense of calm
Yeah.
come over me because I understand it doesn't matter what happens here. Because I said, okay, worst case scenario, nothing happens between us, and we just, obviously we'll remain friends. We're in the same,
Yeah.
circle. But it's like, I know that as amazing as I think she is, if she's not the person that God has for me, then the person who He does have for
It's
me
even better.
is clearly way better. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like nothing against her, obviously, but it's like that's just how it works.
Yeah.
And I can't comprehend that, obviously, but it's like
No.
I know that to be true. Therefore, I have that sense of peace. That's and I have it multiple times a day because I'm in my head all the time.
Yeah.
And so but I do have those reassurances of like, even if nothing would have come of this, everything's gonna be all right. Like it's gonna be good.
Yeah.
And again, like that reaffirms that like, man, the way I'm going about things is different this time. Therefore, I don't think, because like it used to be like, even if I wasn't ever, if I didn't date somebody, but if I liked them or if we were talking or whatever, um, the situation never really ended out great.
Yeah.
And so I always felt bad or awkward around them later, or it was always that disconnect
Yeah.
kind of thing. I won't have any feelings like that this time. I
Yeah.
know I won't, because again, I'm like I was saying earlier, like I'm doing my best, and I'm daily consciously making the decision to try and be above reproach.
Yeah.
That way I'm not
And
compromising
yeah,
anything.
again, it's one of those things that like it's never wrong to check yourself. You know what I mean? That's something we should do all the time, constantly.
Yeah.
Because it's again, if again your heart behind it and your motivation is that your goal is to follow God, give God, be a servant to Him, like everything in your life is for Him, to give Him the glory for His kingdom. Like if that's your, like even if it's sometime not the forefront of your mind, sometimes it's at the back, but like even still, that's like you can see that there's progress being made. One, so like again, you've noticed like relationships past whatever or other things that have happened. Trash.
Trash. Dumpster fire.
Right. I've had a couple of those, that's for sure. But like again, like I think the whole process, like we've talked about this, the process of sanctification, the big churchy words, it's not, oh, you got dunked after you accept Jesus in your heart and you're just perfect. Like no, that's never the case. Like, and so it's like we get the process of slowly getting closer, drawing closer to God, learning more, getting better about walking in our daily lives. And like that's one of the things that like for me it's almost been odd, like because really starting to work on some things, like seriously making changes, like trying to actually like more than just read God's word because it's there, or like, oh, I need to hit the daily check. But like the other night I was reading in bed and like Emily's on the phone talking to her brother and everything, and so I'm just reading, waiting for them to be done, and I just keep reading, and it's not because I'm like oh, I haven't got nothing else to do. Like I'm being intrigued.
Mm,
I'm getting drawn into it. And like I've never had that. Not with a book. Like I've read like 3 books in my whole life. 3 Hank the Cowdog books,
nice. Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I was never a big reader when I
Yeah,
was
and I
younger.
and I still hate it, but like I was reading it and I was like, oh man, like one thing like it was about Gideon, and like when you first
Mm,
kind of meet Gideon, he's in the wine press, or like when God's about to come to him, or the angel of the Lord, which is Jesus. He comes to him in a wine press and he's threshing wheat. In the process, that is throwing the wheat up in the air, the grains fall, the trash goes by. He's in a wine press that's enclosed. You need to be on a hill doing that. And I'm like, I never noticed that. And it's because he's terrified of, I think it's the Ammonites or something like that.
yeah.
And so he's terrified of them. And I'm like, why
Yeah,
did
he was
I, like,
hiding.
right? I never, like, I realized he was hiding, right? But I never realized, like, the task he was doing, they were so terrified of these people.
Yeah, how idiotic he
How,
was
how,
whenever.
how stupid he was doing this. Like, could he not have done it, like, just a little bit at a time or something? Like, could he not have thought a better way? No, he's hiding in the wine press where there is probably very little wind flow. So I'm like, man, like,
Dude, I feel that. I feel
hiding in a wine press, you feel that?
no, no, just the intrigue.
Right?
Because I was like you, like I hated reading when I was
Yeah.
younger.
Still do.
I think no. See, I've actually gotten a lot more. I love it a lot
Eh.
more now. I for some reason this is like the worst. Like, thank God I don't work there anymore. Because my old job, because they wouldn't have fired me, but I would have gotten us talking to. I didn't do crap. There was nothing to do at my old job. Like literally, because I was the only one there. Because it was the small location. It was
Yep.
the less busy location. So like my busy day was like 3-4 customers, no joke.
Jeez.
And like obviously that can take time because you're pumping them the seal coat into the tanks. That can take some time depending on how much they get. But still, it's like the majority of my days were empty. I
Yeah.
didn't see people. I didn't. The phone rang every now and then, but it was like I could answer the question pretty quickly and then get off the phone. And so I just started reading Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Because I got bored. And, because at first I was like, oh, I'm going to watch shows that I wanted to watch or
Yeah.
movies or something like that. But I kind of, like, ran through stuff that
You're like, I have
planned
watched
on watching.
all of
Yeah,
Netflix.
so I was like, you know what? I was like, I have wanted to try and get back into reading.
Yeah.
Because I was never into it when I was younger. And that was more just because I was, like, forced to.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't want to read because you're trying to make me read, basically. But so I ordered like the cheap set of Harry Potter books, and I was like, I'm just gonna read them, and I
Yeah.
read the Harry Potter book, and I loved it.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved it, and so then I started reading. I kind of quit. Silmarillion is so hard to read. It's the prequel to Lord of the Rings,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the lore of it. It's setting up the world,
Yeah.
and everything. So hard to read. So I've only read like half of it, and I might just skip to
More
the
than
Hobbits
me.
and Lord of the Rings. But like that was something that I noticed when I did get back into reading my Bible a lot more was, and I don't think that this is necessarily right in some scenarios,
Don't be prideful now.
but I treated it like a fantasy story.
Yeah.
Like, because obviously Harry Potter's not real.
Yeah. No.
Obviously Lord of the Rings isn't real, but it's fantasy.
Yeah.
It gets your mind going because it's like there's an
Yeah.
adventure and stuff like. I started reading a lot of the passages that, like, especially in Genesis,
Yeah.
because that's about the creation.
Yeah.
That's about all these different
Creation
things.
and the world.
Bunch of crazy stories going on. Bunch of people killing each other.
Picture yourself
raping
in the
each other,
flood.
stuff like that. But so yeah, I started kind of looking at it as like a fantasy story.
Yeah.
And realistically, a lot of the historical parts of the Bible are like that.
Yeah.
Because some of them stories are crazy. Like, some of them stories get wild. And
Yeah.
so it's like, it does align with that kind of like storytelling kind of style. And that was what helped me like really get back into reading scripture. Because I hated reading scripture. And it's not that I hate scripture. But it's
Yeah.
just I hate reading.
Yeah.
And it was like, that was the hard part.
Yeah. And like for me, it was the fact that like literally have never been intrigued to read, and like I'm reading this story, and so like, and it gives me more passages that I can go read, and it gives me more comparisons, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, and I'm like,
Hair is right.
oh, it feels great. And like I was reading it and I was like, man, and I really haven't thought about that till like honestly this moment that like last night I was kind of like, man, I just kept reading and not realizing like, oh, I've been here for now an hour reading, just while she's been on the phone talking to her brother and other friends and stuff. And it's just like, whoa, like, man, clearly there's a lot of good stuff in there, but it's
Yeah.
like seriously having that,
Man, this
like,
book got something to say.
it's just like, and it was things that like, again, I've heard the story of Gideon probably 100 times,
Yeah.
knowing that he was in the wine press because of fear, of them. But like, then I realized like, whoa, like I've never been terrified in my life. Like the most terrified I've ever been was I kind of kicked Donnie in the face one day. I mean, kicked him hard, nose bleeding, and like I ran to my room and locked the door. And he's a big dude, and like luckily
Like broke the door down.
he just about did. I mean, it was definitely messed up after that. But that was like probably one of the scariest times I've ever been. Was because I felt really bad about what I did too. Because I was wrong.
You can't just kick somebody in the face.
Well, we were fighting and wrestling, and I just kind of like
You went a little hard with it.
a little hard.
Have you gotten to the moment? This is kind of sidetracking. Well, it's not sidetracking, but have you gotten to the moment where? Because I absolutely believe this because I felt it multiple times. Because obviously, like for people like us who hate reading, it's a chore.
Yeah.
It starts out as a chore. It definitely does. But once you kind of get into the habit space of it, to where it's like you've done it enough, 2, 3, 4 weeks, and so like it's the routine now.
Yeah.
Have you gotten to the point where like you missed a day, and you felt that you missed it? Like you could tell there's a difference because you missed a day.
I mean, because here's the thing, like, just recently, like, we had missed a couple days because, oh man, we've had a heck of a week, skunk by the house. So we ended up
I feel like I keep getting out of frame, but I don't care.
Packing up and literally moving to her parents' house for a couple days because it was just like the smell was horrendous.
Did you ever fix that and get it fixed?
The skunk, yeah. Thank God there was not one under our house. We just think one came and sprayed. Yeah, up by the house, and I mean it was just bad. It lingered still for another like 3 or 4 days after we moved back in. Like we'd open the door and smell it. But sidetrack story, yeah, no skunk, thank the Lord. But I mean, I honestly like with reading last night was kind of picking back up into that. Honestly, like because I had missed pretty much like that almost that week, and like. I noticed the different side of like actually like being intrigued by it. Not the like I didn't feel like disconnected from God because I've been trying to be more like just at work 8 hours a day. Most of the time I don't have to talk to a lot of people or deal with things that I can't do more than one thing at one time, and so like I'll just try to like randomly be talking to God during the day in my head, just like praying about things, whatever's going on. Constantly. Yeah, and so it's like I never really felt like super disconnected, but like. I feel like since I picked that up and then kind of just dropped it off and now I picked it back up, I'm like, oh man, I've been in better conversation with God, trying to talk to him. I was like, oh man, like there's some things in here that like, again, heard the stories hundreds of times and like never realizing just how terrified he was, to not want to be, seen by people or something like that. And then all these other things, and then you get to the other neat stuff, in that story about the fleece and all that stuff, and it's just like, man, like to be that terrified of somebody, and then the angel of the Lord coming and talking to you, and then all of a sudden you just like start like he didn't like it wasn't like he was terrified, and then all of a sudden he's just like this big strong man, he's ready to go. It was a couple gradual steps, but then he was like, all right, like I'm trusting you on this, and sometimes that's our only choice. So, but yeah, so.
Dude, we're 33 minutes in.
Yeah.
for that was a toss up. That was not a planned. See, this is the thing. This is why I like the I guess spontaneous. This is also why I will sometimes not like prepare you. For a question. Because obviously, yes, it would have helped if you had like those few quotes, but like. I think if we like plan out our stuff, because like obviously the next episode is going to be very planned out.
Yeah.
Or I say planned out. I don't have notes for it. I just have I know.
I actually have I have a couple of verses.
But it's a very planned out topic.
Yeah.
This one, I mean, dude, we just been talking and I think some of these conversations are yes, the next conversation is going to be really, really good because it's a theological one.
Yeah.
But like this one's I think this one's much more in depth of like where we're at basically.
Yeah.
I like these conversations.
So,
I'm
but
kind of surprised that lasts that long.
and
Now,
oh,
no, this is like a side note. Do you want to finish off with the question that we were supposed to do like 2-3 weeks ago? The camp.
Yeah, let's throw a couple of those.
Because that might
let's
not,
do top 3.
Might not be great for the next
Now
episode.
let's do
It just
top 3
depends.
because the next one we're gonna try to get not super serious, but we're gonna try to actually talk about
this
something
one
we
was
want to
deep.
talk about. Yeah.
For since we're just rambling and not explaining ourselves, Doug. So we used to go to kids camp and youth camp
Together.
Together.
We just luckily were in that area.
Obviously we grew up at the same church and stuff like that. But my dad was, the Matt,
The children's minister. Is the word
my dad was
for.
the children's minister for like 30 years or whatever it was, or 20 years. I'm sorry, he was a cop for 30.
Yeah.
For like 20 years. And so when we grew out of kids camp, we became counselors.
Not
kids
immediately,
camp.
luckily.
No. You have to go like 2. I think it's like 2 or 3 years.
He didn't let
out of kids
anybody
camp.
under 16 go.
Yeah, you have to be like 2 or 3 years out of kids camp
Yeah.
to go to kids camp as like a counselor. Like
Yeah.
that's like the rule that camp rules too.
Your dad's rule was 16.
But I mean, like obviously it's my dad. Haley went. It was like we were the best free options, kind of, and not that he paid us.
No.
But it was like we were the options that he knew who we were. We had grown up obviously under him and our parents and stuff like that. But yeah, so we went to kids camp every single year.
Yep.
Even after we got out, we went as counselors, and that was up until like
a couple years ago.
Yeah, maybe 2 or 3 was the last. Oh no, it was
more
longer
than that
for me.
Yeah, it's
The
been
last
like
year
5 for
yeah,
you.
I think for me it's at least been 4 or 5 years since I went. I mean, youth camp was before that though. Like I quit going to youth camp
when you
a
moved.
year or 2 before that. Yeah, when I moved to DBU, and that was because, and not that I didn't want to. I didn't have time off. Like I was working a full-time job, so I had to have time off to do it. Because the first couple years of DBU, the first year or 2, I was because I wasn't working.
Yeah.
But when I started working, that was when I was like, hey, I don't have time off for this because I got this and this and this that I'm trying to go to. But yeah, so we probably were counselors at kids camp for as many years, if not more, than we were actually kids at kids camp.
Oh, more. Yeah, definitely more.
Which is an experience in itself. I will say, though, I hated it during the week because like kids camp is like 3 days. It's not like this big. Like youth camp was like a week typically. It was like 3 full days and then 2 half days, capping them off. Kids camp was like you get there, you have 2 full days, and then you leave.
Yeah,
and that was it. Like,
but that still felt longer than youth camp.
It was a weekend. Yeah, it was literally a weekend. But I hated it while we were there. But like looking back on it, because when I was thinking about it, I was like, I really did get excited for kids camp because of our group of counselors.
Yeah,
it was me. The bulk of it. A few years we had interchanging people, but for the bulk of it, it was me, you, Mikey was there for a good amount of years.
Yeah,
Haley and Colby.
Yeah.
We had Donnie one year. I think Donnie was the counselor with me and Colton, like the year before you were able to come.
Yeah.
To start being a counselor. And then we had somebody else one time. I can't remember who it was. Colton might have came one time.
I know Colton came once.
Yeah. But the core of it was like me, you, Colby, Haley, basically.
Yeah.
Mikey too. Like Mikey was there for like I think 3 or 4 years back to back. That was the most fun. Was just the fact that it was like that group of people. But I hated that camp. I couldn't stand it.
The hills, man.
Yeah, dude, you're trekking it like we were out of shape. I think I'm more out of shape now than I was then. but I was still out of shape back then. Like,
I'm way out of shape
yeah,
now.
like I was still out of shape. Oh, I would die. We would die.
Yeah, when I went last year, I caught a lot of rides.
I think, did I go last year?
No,
I don't think I did.
no, you haven't gone in
Oh yeah,
years.
because you went with Emma. Because Emily led
Yeah,
it last
and
year.
she didn't lead it, but she drug me into it.
Yeah, just because you married her.
Yeah.
But
All right.
yeah, it was rough. There were a few key moments that stick out to me, and I
Now
think
we
they
we
stick
going
out to
directly
you.
kids camp or youth camp?
So we're gonna do both.
Okay.
Because this was the funny thing. I always thought it was really cool that we did this because in a way it was very prideful because I was like, no one's dedicated like we are to do this, because typically literally every year we either had it was youth camp typically every year first.
Yeah.
We had youth camp and then we immediately went to kids camp.
Yep.
And so it was like, and I remember one year the times overlapped so bad that we couldn't even leave. Like we left youth camp, and as soon as we got back, we got into a van and went to kids camp because we were already late.
Yeah.
To kids camp, basically. I remember we had to go wash our clothes at a laundromat because we literally, because usually it was like,
You had like a couple hours, or like
usually
a day.
we had a day.
Yeah.
We went to kids camp and then the next day we were going to or we went to youth camp. The next day it was kids camp.
Yeah.
That was the same. It was literally, we were behind because it was just grand pack and it was just that year. But I remember that trip. That one was a fun one.
Yeah. And that was the one before I went, or I had something going on and I wasn't able to go to that one.
Yeah, because
thank God.
that was me, Mikey. That was the first year Mikey went, and then Mikey became like one of the mains for like 3-4 years because you couldn't go.
Yeah.
So he took your spot, and then the next 2 or 3 years we were just like, well, we could always use another guy counselor anyway. So we kept Mikey in the rotation. But yeah, it was me, Mikey, Haley, and Colby, and I think Miss Janet Wett. I think Mikey's mom.
Yeah. That or Miss Askew.
I think it was Miss Janet who drove us. Because I think Mom and Miss Kendra were already up there with Dad.
With your dad.
But yeah, so it was... That was crazy because we literally in podunk nowhere. Which, I mean, like, Lone Star isn't... the camp was in Lone Star Kids Camp, so it was like 45 minutes from the church. It wasn't that far.
No.
I think we did laundry in Ore City or something like that. But it was like... It felt like we were in the ghetto.
Yeah, but you also turned around and drove. Yeah, it was like 6 hours back from camp. Yeah.
The youth camp was like that was what made it hard.
Yeah.
Because that year youth camp was like, I think that might have been one of the years we were in Mississippi.
Yeah.
And so it was like a 5-6 hour drive. And so yeah, then we turned around and then went another hour.
All right, so let's hop into them. So for me,
do youth camp or kids camp?
I'm gonna do one from youth camp first, and I'm gonna just do like top 3 stories of things that like I remember that happened.
I have top 3. I'd probably do.
So like
maybe
one was the first year that you were a counselor, and me,
At
you,
Louisiana?
and me. Well, I don't know if it
was LA Tech.
Yeah, me, you, and Tyler Webb were in a room together.
Yes.
You know exactly where this is going.
Oh my gosh!
And
yes.
you found out just how
That
much
was
I talk in
terrifying.
my sleep.
No, it wasn't that.
I
knew that.
Yeah.
I didn't know you screamed in your sleep. That was terrible.
I remember because y'all were telling me the next day. And
Tyler wanted to fight you. He thought you were possessed.
Yeah, because me and Tyler were asleep. Like he was going, like he was kind of
up. So what had so that night, and it had to have been that night. It was, of course.
Yeah.
It was one of the last night. I think it was the night before the last full day of camp.
Yeah.
I decided, because I had an ego, I decided to throw out the lesson plan that they gave us, and I just decided to make my own. Granted, I'd felt like there are specific things that I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
And I was teaching my age, which is something that you typically didn't do. Like, typically, whenever you were the first counselor, they tried to get you with the junior high kids.
Yeah.
That way, if you mess up, they don't know. They probably ain't paying attention anyway.
Yeah.
But my first year, they kind of threw me under the bus. Well, they didn't mean to, but it worked out like that. And so I was teaching, because I was a junior my first counselor year. I was a junior, and I was teaching juniors, seniors, and then just graduated seniors. So I was college age, and my junior and senior, which was why Tyler was in there, because Tyler was I think he was a counselor, but he was
Yeah.
also just graduated like a year before or something. But I think he was,
I think it was a counselor.
But yeah, so I for some reason decided to just throw it out and make my own lesson plan. So I was up till like 2 a.m. doing my own lesson plan, and Tyler was up with me. So we had just started to go to bed when crap hit the fan, and you decided to scream bloody. I can't even remember what you said.
I yelled for Faith. Faith is my sister, if anybody that listens doesn't know her. And, like, apparently I yelled her name, like, 3 or 4 times.
Yeah,
and then
you were definitely at your house.
It was like at my house, and, like, I'm yelling for her. And then at the end, I just go, never mind, and just plop back over and go to bed.
And it wasn't a... You don't understand the fear that went through, because Tyler legit wanted to fight you, because he was like, he's like, is he okay? Like I'm pretty sure he thought you were demonic at that point, because we're on bunks or whatever, and so like there's 1, 2, 3 beds. I think I was the middle. He was on the far side or whatever. You were over here. We're on bunk beds. You're just laying down, whatever, and no joke, you're down, and you full on lean up, like full on sit up, 90-degree angle. Straight, you're sitting straight up in the bed, and you turn to the door. Like I can't remember if your eyes were open or not, but I imagine they were, because you turn to the door and then you start yelling for Faith, and so like that's why it freaked us out, because it wasn't just like you were just laying in bed like, oh no, like yelling like that. No, you like sat straight up, turned your head towards me and Tyler, mind you, because you were there over there, the door was over here. So you turned towards us and started yelling at us, and so we were freaking out. And then you were like, "Oh, never mind," and then you just kind of like laid back down. I was like, it was horrific, because I knew, because obviously I'd spent the night at your house a ton growing up, so I knew that both you and Donnie, like, you would talk in your sleep every now and then, because me and Colton tested it multiple times, like summers and stuff when we would all be over there or whatever. Me and Colton would try and have conversations with you on sleep, and Donnie could actually hold a conversation.
Yeah,
kind of. It was that weird, like, between, like you're active, you know what's going on, and you don't, and he could hold a conversation. So you could ask him questions, and he could like somewhat hold a conversation. You just kind of like moaned in your sleep and like would say words.
Yeah.
But never in my life had I ever heard you scream or yell, because it wasn't like it was full on yelling. Like it was if you were outside and a lawnmower was running right next to you, and you were trying to yell at her to get her attention. Like it was that. It was terrifying.
Yeah.
Because it was 2:00 in the morning, and I was exhausted because we had just finished, and Tyler was tired because he was just like, "Oh, I'll just stay up with you." Like he didn't have to; he just decided to, and I was like, "Okay." So we were tired. And then that happened.
And then I'll go ahead and move on to my next one. My next one was the year that the bus broke down.
Oh, gosh. That was
We
early.
were on our way back.
That was LA Tech, too. That was like one of our first years at LA Tech.
Yeah, and it broke down. And so we spent the next like 4 hours just chilling. We were throwing a kickball at a board that had 2 little pieces coming out, playing basketball. I mean, we just doing all kinds.
That was on the side of the road.
Yeah.
Dude,
when we broke down, we were on the side of the highway.
We were sketchy. No, because remember, we broke down. There's multiple years that we've broken down.
Yeah, we had some trashy buses.
Dude,
for a while.
Our buses were garbage. Like, no offense, but they were, because I forgot about that one.
Yeah, and then
I thought you were talking about the one where it was LA Tech, and we were in that we stayed in that coffee house.
Yeah,
for like 3 hours, because Gara was out trying to fix it.
Yeah, it was the belt came off the motor.
Yeah, we hadn't even left.
It was the 4th of July. No, we had left. It was 4th of July weekend, but then we had to like call a church, and they shuttled us back.
I forgot about that. Yeah,
but we made it like 15 minutes down the road.
Wait, was that the same trip or no?
It was the same trip, because what happened was when your dad and my dad came to get us on the other bus,
we broke down again.
That one broke down too, because they lost 2 tires. They blew out a tire on the way to get us.
The rescue bus.
Yeah, and so
down.
It ended up being like all of the they're calling parents, and parents are shuttling up to get us. And it was 4th of July weekend. I mean, it was the 4th of July.
Yeah.
And so like nobody's open, because we're America and we're gonna drink beer and shoot fireworks. Nobody was open. We couldn't get parts. It was pretty horrendous.
Yeah, because
but it was one of the best times we ever had. I feel like.
Oh, dude. I
had so much fun.
We all got shuttled back by a neighbor church. Or something.
I think that
It was Miss Amy knew somebody.
yeah, and
at a church.
they weren't Baptist. Well, they were something that was like it was kind of funny that they were getting us because like we don't go hand in hand together.
Yeah, but hey, when in need.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, it was Miss Amy and knew somebody around the area, and so they shuttled us back to campus.
Yeah.
And we got the bus. Somehow we got the bus towed back, or whatever.
Yeah.
Or whatever happened. Garrow was literally because I remember multiple times we would like go in groups to check on him.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Because it was hot too.
It was like
it was
100
middle of summer.
yeah.
Yeah. And so he's hot, sweaty, out there by himself.
Yeah, he got
like,
asphalt
because
poisoning.
we're all daggum kids, so we don't know what we're doing.
Yeah.
You were probably the closest one
Yeah.
as a junior high kid.
Yeah, but I didn't know enough.
Yeah,
to
it was
help,
like so like he's by himself trying to fix that. But yeah, I remember we got lucky because like most of the campus was shut down. I remember that.
Yeah.
Because I think they were getting ready for another camp.
Yeah.
And we got lucky, and we were in this. It was like a cafe.
Yeah, we
area.
literally were going around the college campus just trying to open doors.
Yeah, it was this cafe area. It had a coffee shop. It had a couple restaurants. And we played tag and hide and seek. I don't know how we played hide and seek because there's 100 of us. But we played tag
There
and
wasn't
we
that many,
got
luckily.
cards and stuff like that. Like, I remember that.
Yeah.
I forgot about breaking down again whenever the rescue bus came
Yeah.
and got us. I completely forgot about that. Dude,
Yeah.
our buses were trash.
Yeah, and we still have one of those buses actually. We finally got rid of the yellow one too. That yellow one was
The white
rough.
one was better.
The white one was better. The white one was the one that blew the tires
the white
out.
one was the one that supposed to be the rescue bus.
But
and it didn't
so
work.
and now I'll go to my final story, and it's a kids camp story. And this was back when it was like rules really weren't like super strict because like I went like I said 2 years ago, last year, whatever. Rules have gotten like super strict. Like
they hunkered down.
They had to hunker down on a lot of stuff because kids were getting hurt on stuff. Because they added a lot of cool stuff.
Hurt?
Well, they added some like archery. Like they added archery and stuff, and so they like really like enforced a lot of rules.
Gotcha.
So the blob got
sense.
a lot of rules added to it. They wouldn't let the big guys launch them anymore.
Yeah, they would.
And so
Needle was getting
you were
launched
yeah
every year.
yeah, and Mikey Webb was the one I was about to bring up. Whenever he was, because this was like. I think it was my last year,
he was young.
or it was either my last year as a student to go, or it was my first time to go as a counselor.
I think it was Dad that blobbed him.
And
right?
Dad and some other guy, because they used to let two guys blob them.
Yeah, I remember
They
that.
quit that, and like even still, like they try to like keep weight ratios, like just observing. Like
It's not fun.
it's not. I did launch a little child. That poor girl was like, you're not that big. You won't launch me that far, dude. I like gave it to all. I launched her pretty good though, but like I remember because that was like I said back when rules weren't really a thing and we were launching kids. Oh man, poor Mikey. I mean, dude caught air.
Oh yeah,
He went at least
he's
50.
younger than you,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, he's younger than I am.
So he was he was probably
And he was
fourth grade.
tiny.
He was probably
tiny.
fourth grade,
Yeah.
and he's always been small. So he was super small back then. Yeah, I remember that. I think he at least got 30, 40 feet in the air.
He had to have been more than that. But I remember, and granted I was young, so like of course I always thought, but I mean, even the adults were like, oh dang.
Oh yeah, he was
Because like when he hit, he was hurt. Like
Yeah,
he didn't
it
like
was-
he was able to get up and swim and stuff.
he probably definitely had the wind knocked out.
but yeah,
of
he
him.
definitely got the wind knocked out of him. But yeah, that was awesome. Good time back in the day.
That was not at all what I thought you were going to talk about, dude. One of my favorite. So I
honestly forgot a lot of kids camp stories.
kids camp stuff. One of my favorite things was every year, besides the few that we had, or actually besides the one that we had to go straight to,
Yeah.
one of us always drove.
Yeah.
So it was either we always had my car with us, or Haley had her car.
And then we brought my car one year, and then we got to bring
Brought your car's
Dad's.
Challenger one year. So we always had an extra car, and that was mainly for emergencies.
Yeah.
Like if we had to go to Walmart to get stuff that someone forgot,
Yeah.
or if someone, God forbid, got hurt. and they had to
Literally,
go to the
one of the kids.
hospital or
I
something.
remember the kids forgetting the underwear.
Yeah, stuff like that. Like
Yeah.
essentials that you needed. Like there was a Walmart not too far, so I was like,
Yeah.
that was what it was made for. Not for us.
Oh, wow, we
took
used it.
We took it to Sonic every night because for some reason we just did. Like Dad was just like, I don't give a crap. He didn't care.
Yeah, it was kind of the kids' free time, and
Yeah,
he didn't really care.
After the service, they had we had like a church time
Yep.
where the church the group got together. Dad would talk for a little bit, just kind of go over the day, what people learned, stuff like that. and then talk about the next day, what was going to happen. And then after that, you would have like probably 45 minutes to maybe an hour before lights out.
Yeah.
And so, so we would always just go to Sonic
Yeah.
because there was a Sonic like 10 minutes down the road. A lot of the rec people would always go there. Some of the other counselors, older counselors would go, but like it was mainly just us. Like we would always go. That was always so much fun going there. But there's another, my favorite story, my favorite time remembering, and I'm gonna name drop, and I don't care because he's not gonna listen to this. No one's gonna listen to this, but the Matthews, Owen, Owen Matthews.
Yeah.
So, and I will say, I think it was the same year that at youth camp Kane tested it, and Kane was able to do it too. So.
I know exactly. I remember what you're talking about now.
So some kids that we had, and we'd had, it was two brothers. One was quite a bit older.
Yeah.
Kane was always quite a bit older.
Like
than
4 or 5 years.
But they were on they're bigger boys.
Yeah.
And they always have been. And I think Owen did it first, and then we asked Kane to do it because I think we went to youth camp after kids camp.
I think so.
But Owen, so like in the cabins, they're very shoddy. They were always we were always in like the decent ones, but they were still not great.
They're still not great.
But so like you're in your bunk, and they have like just kind of like a concrete floor basically, and they had like carpet in some
carpet in the under the beds.
But then
and
there's
stuff
like tile and stuff
in the bathroom,
in the bathroom area,
which is really disgusting.
Oh, it was horrible.
So disgusting.
But Owen, I can't remember. I think we had. I know exactly what it was. We were jerks. we as counselors, me, you, and Mikey were terrible because we always had snacks and food because like obviously we'd buy stuff.
We knew what we were doing. Yeah.
We had like Cheez-Its or beef jerky sticks or whatever. All the kids would be like, "Oh, can we have some of your snacks? Let's have snacks." We would make them do push-ups and sit-ups for snacks.
Working out, yeah.
We'd
make them work for it.
We would make them work for it. We were jerks.
We're just watching their health.
That's what started it. Was they were doing? I think we were making kids do push-ups or sit-ups, and sit-ups for like beef jerky or something like that. And Owen obviously was one of the kids who was like wanting snacks or something. He decided to do. I think he was clearly doing sit-ups. And he was doing them in like the tile area, the back, because it was wide. Like you only had like a lane basically around the cabin because there were so many bunks in there. You had like a walk lane, so he was trying to do his sit-ups in the tile area. And again, big boy, he's always been big. He did a sit-up and he made a suction cup sound.
Yep.
By accident, it was just like he pulled up on a sit-up and it was like. it was like a perfect suction cup, and obviously all the kids started busting out laughing, and we were kind of like, I was confused. I was like, what happened? And he kept doing it, and it was like making a perfect suction cup.
Every time he did
it. And dude, it was funny. I can't remember how hard we were laughing, but I know we were laughing hard.
He kept doing it.
And this is like obviously we weren't laughing at him. No. We were laughing with him. He was laughing about it. He was doing it to make us laugh.
Yeah.
It was not like we were making fun of him. We were laughing at what he was doing because he was doing like that, and that's their family. Like they're very they're showmanship people. Yeah. Like they're very like, "Oh, let me get a laugh out of you." Which is why Kane eventually did it later at youth camp because me and Mikey and you were all I think we were all talking about it, and he was like, "Oh, let me try it." He did it, and it was the same.
And he literally was like, "Everybody, come here, everybody!"
Yeah,
and
he had a full room of guys in one dorm
and he goes,
room.
"Shh, shh."
And doing it, it was the funny that I don't think I'd ever laugh that hard, and I don't think I ever will laugh that hard. It was hilarious. That was like the first thing that came to my mind whenever you talked about like stories like that. Because
I remember that too.
I don't think anything would ever top that. Because there was always good moments that you had at camp, but like again, like I liked camp specifically because of the people I was around. I hated the actual camp. I hated walking the hills. I hated the rec people. No offense, I love some of y'all because I know some of y'all.
Yeah, but y'all were the worst still.
Oh, they were terrible. The first couple of years, they were horrible.
Oh, dude, brings up another great story. The time your dad nearly killed a kid that was on the rec team because the big boy that would like threw our.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
dude, I remember that, and we're gonna throw this one in there, but yeah, like,
Your dad got choppy with it.
yeah, your dad, like, I mean, your dad's not a small guy. I mean, six plus, you know,
6'2", yeah.
6'2". I mean, he probably 250, 260. I mean, he's up there if not more now because
On
he's
a
getting
light
old.
day, yeah.
On a
He's
light
probably a
day,
little heavier than
on the
that.
days where he's snacking a little heavy, 290. But I mean, his kid, I mean, he's kind of
The boy was big too.
yeah, he was a big, but he was just big. He was just
Yeah.
kind of fat.
He was a big football player.
Football
He
player.
was beefy.
Yeah, and so like I mean, like some of our girls were sitting down in worship, and he like flung them out of their seat, and your dad like grabbed him.
Yeah, it was. So my issue with the rec, and pretty much everyone's issue with the rec team early on, and this was the first like handful of years. They got better.
Yeah,
Mainly because
they've gotten better.
Mainly because they changed like
the leaders.
And stuff, and they enforced rules. But like the rec kids, and I get it. Your job at that camp is to be hyper. It's to be excited and like energetic and all this. You're leading rec, you know. But they would take it to like a whole nother level. Some of them. And we were in the worship service.
Yeah.
And they were singing, and I think some of our girls were sitting down, weren't standing when we were singing. We don't care. Like, I'm sorry, but we don't care if you're like now if you're not standing and you're like messing with something or like talking. Yeah, that's one thing. Like,
but they were sitting down.
They
singing.
were sitting down singing. Like it wasn't like they weren't paying.
Yeah, and because we know the girls, and they're like some of the best ones there.
They just
like
didn't want to stand up. I don't care. You know, you're paying attention, you're singing, you're not disrupting. That's fine. Well, yeah, the big boy, he came around and just didn't like that they weren't sitting and literally threw the back of their chairs forward. And they were small girls, and so they got yeeted out of their chairs. And again, I get like the mentalities. Like he was like, "Oh, they're not standing. They need to stand it." But it's like they took it too far. And yeah, Dad manhandled him, kind of in front of everybody.
Yeah,
during the worship service, and it was kind of He didn't come around us anymore.
No,
that whole week.
No, and he apologized too. I remember.
He did. Yeah, he did. He came back the next day and apologized.
Yeah.
Apologized to Dad, and it was just one of those things that in the moment it was, emotions were going,
and I think it wasn't even like it was at the end of the service when they're supposed to be having like fun with the songs and singing, and like they were just like, we're tired, we're ready to go to bed.
It wasn't. Things which Dad was just protective at that point, but I remember that one. But I hated it because I used to do this just to get because like they used to the rec time was what pissed me off the most.
Yeah,
all the time,
especially wet rec.
Yes, because get it. If it's the kids, you want the kids to be energetic. You want them to
splash them with the water.
They always encouraged the leaders and the adults that were there to get involved, and a lot of them did.
Yeah.
Some of us didn't like to. Some of us just wanted to sit down and watch the kids
and
play.
Make sure that our kids are there.
Yeah, make sure, because we had some rambunctious runaways and would not show up. Every year, I basically found like the cop-out way to do it, and I brought a camera with me. Fair enough, though. Like Dad wanted photos.
Yeah.
Like he wanted to try and do a slideshow every year, so I was taking photos. But it was also like, oh, if I have a camera, they won't get us wet. That didn't stop them sometimes.
No.
Some of those kids would see a camera in your hand, and these are the rec leaders. They would see it, and mind you, these are like at the youngest teenagers, 15 years old, 16 years old. People who should know better.
Yeah, they should know that a camera costs a couple $100.
Who should know, like, read the room, read the situation. Yeah. You could have I had it multiple times. I had a camera in my hand, and they would try and throw water at me. I'm like, dude. I'm like, granted, I am doing this so I don't get wet, but it's like I have a camera in my hand, or like I have my phone out. It's like my phone's in my pocket, stuff like that. It's like this is an iPhone. They're not cheap.
Yeah, I remember one year I was sitting over there, and like one of them came up with a bucket of water, and I looked at him. I said, I have $2,500 worth of electronics on me, and you will pay for every single one of them if you get me wet. And she goes.
Yeah, some of them, it was like they just took it too far.
Yeah, like I had a backpack, and some of our kids had phones, and we allowed them to have their phones on them. You know, we didn't let them like take them up and like give them to them at the.
Always took them up.
I don't think we did it one year.
Actually, I don't know if Dad ever.
No, because whenever I went, I had an iPod and I'd listen to music whenever I was on free time and stuff.
That might have been different.
Yeah.
I think phones I don't know if Dad took him up or if he just didn't let. He's like, don't bring your phone.
Yeah, and so like one of our kids was like bringing it, like, well, we had a kid bring their phone with them, and so he's like, hey, hold this, and so I stuck it in my backpack. But I had my laptop in there, I had my phone, I had one of the other person workers' phones because they're like, we're gonna play, with the kids, and then I had the kid's phone. I'm like, I've got $3,000 worth of phones on me and
Yeah.
stuff. I'm like, why are you throwing water at all of my electronics?
Yeah, they did get better, but again, it was because the leaders kind of changed around, and they were like, "Hey, I understand.
If they don't want to do it,
They don't want to get wet. They're
Yeah.
here to manage their kids. Watch the kids. Don't get them wet." And then it was blessed.
Yeah.
It was great from then on.
yeah. So, but yeah, so we better get ready for this. Yeah. We definitely went over an hour, so
We just
I think we're just gonna wrap it up there, and we'll get into our next one.
Kids camp was trash.